Guys, I want to thank you all so very much for coming. You could have done anything with your time on a Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. I know a good handful of you are driving in the car, probably battling traffic. I try to make a time that would work for people on the East Coast as well as the West Coast. It looks like just a couple of West Coasters tonight. But I just wanted to share some major points and takeaways from my experiences of building schools in third world countries, or rather developing countries, and my experience with this nonprofit called BuildOn. So I want to take the next, whatever it's going to be, for 30, 45 minutes to speak through some of my experiences, as well as let Maurice speak, who is our, like I said, our touch basis point with BuildOn, to describe the importance of education in the developing world and why it's so important that we support people who haven't gotten an education, and why an education is such the real basis for making a big difference and turning around their circumstances. For me personally, this all started a handful of years ago when my roommate and I were volunteering at an after-school education leadership program, and he was asked to go on a trek with BuildOn because a spot had opened up to Malawi. He had gone on the experience, and he came back raving about it, talking about it as the most meaningful and impactful thing that he'd ever done in terms of service work. Not only were the people incredible and warm because he had learned so much about their culture and got to spend time living and working side by side with these people, but he also saw the effects that an education in the developing world really means in terms of transforming people's health, their economic circumstances, and in terms of their ability to prevent and fight infectious diseases and things of that nature. So when he came back and kind of told me and a good handful of our friends about it, we were all jazzed and fired up, and we decided that we would take on the task of helping to raise money for 3 schools in 1 year, which was an incredible experience. Maurice will talk to some more specifics, and he can correct me at any time, but my understanding is that it takes about $28,500 to $35,000 to build a primary school in the developing world. And with that task, we decided to take on 3 schools, meaning we needed to raise about $100,000 in order to build these schools. And BuildOn, as a nonprofit, builds schools primarily in locations like Nepal, Senegal, Malawi, Mali, Burkina Faso, Nicaragua, Haiti. I might be missing a few of them. And through the process, through generous donations, talking to people in different corporate industries, as well as putting on a big charitable fundraiser and event show, which some of you may have attended or at least seen pictures of, we were able to raise the money over a good handful of months and fulfill our obligation of building those schools. And what a lot of people have seen from my social media feeds and everything else is my experience is actually going to building these schools, which is the big icing on the cake and the reward for doing all the work. But for me, it was really even just sharing the importance of education and why it's important, I think, have made a bigger impact on me than even just going out there and digging a trench and digging ditches. Just a quick background on myself. I have probably spent too much time in school because I loved it so much and because I thought it was a really important way in terms of changing my own circumstances. I went to undergraduate school for 4 years. I then went to a business school for 2 years, and then I went to a doctoral program for another 2 years. So I've spent a better part of a decade in higher education, and I value it so, so much. So when an opportunity like this came along for me, it was something that I jumped on right away and wholeheartedly. And as a lot of you know, I've shared a video with most people either via posts as well as an email that many of you might have already received with regards to that. I can sit here and play it in the background if you guys can see my screen. For those who are on the phone, no big deal. But the time this last video I'm sharing right at the moment is from Nepal, and what ends up happening when you go on one of these treks is you get to get really connected with people who are so grateful and so appreciative that you're changing their circumstances, because a lot of the times they really want education, but they just don't have the means. They don't have a physical building to have a school. They don't have books. They don't have supplies. And our experience of going halfway around the world, taking a long bus ride, and way too much time on a plane to meet people, as you can see, smiling faces who are just so grateful and thankful for the experience. It's truly overwhelming, and it honestly has radically transformed my life in so many ways. What you end up doing while you're on trek, and again, Maurice is going to talk to it further, but you end up coming into a community, usually a tribe of some sort, or a local small community that really needs a school badly, and they take you in with open arms. They share their different experiences, their cultures. You get to like live side by side with them and work side by side with them, as I'm like right now with with my little brothers, cleaning my laundry or making bread or things of that nature. And you can see that their lifestyle is way different than ours. We are you end up taking from the experience is how lucky and fortunate we are. I always come back to the States feeling completely overwhelmed with how easy my life is and how many blessings I have because of everything that I see in these other countries, and how happy everyone is in spite of what they don't have, and how grateful they are, and it just creates more of the same. We were really fortunate to remarry some of our people that came on trek, and part of a ceremony there. But again, it's just a bunch of smiling faces because they are so thankful for what we have done, and in turn, honestly, they are giving way more to us than we probably have with them in regards to money or experience. Like I said, I always come back really changed. I've been fortunate enough to spend time in both Malawi and Nepal. Here's a couple of children who are telling me namaste constantly. When I'm on trek, I love to go build latrines and like dig, and I love jumping in there and helping out. And let me be very clear that this is not necessarily a vacation, and you get to go see where the school is being built. You're there to work, and one of the mottos of BuildOn is anything you do for us without us is not really for us, meaning that it's not enough just to provide money for a school and then just let people be, but it's about getting in there, get your hands dirty, and experiencing their life and culture and sharing yours as well. A lot of the times through translators, and really just closing those borders because we are really one big global family, one big global community. And the people I've met there, along with those that I traveled with, will be friends and family really for the rest of my life. I still have a beautiful picture of my Nepalese family that I would call them mom and dad, and funny enough, they're younger than me, and they were kind enough to open up their homes. But here's some pictures of us at a completed school that we also got to see, and again, people learning and hungry, to learn how to read and write. Adult women also learning, as some pictures are coming up right now, for the first time, so that they can make sure they communicate to their doctors about what they need, what their children need. Again, it's been a phenomenal experience for me. I know the video is winding down, but I could speak to it endlessly, and my heart is full just watching this video again with you guys side by side. But what I want to do at this time is pass it off to Maurice, who again is a good new friend of mine. He works with the nonprofit BuildOn, who me and other friends have worked with side by side for the last couple of years. And I'm going to let him talk about who BuildOn is, what they do specifically, what are the circumstances of which everything comes from, and yeah, he'll take care of the rest. Maurice, if you will, please share with us some goodies.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much, Tamek. And I'm going to take the screen back just a second.
Please.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad and excited to meet you all, and I can't wait to meet you all in person. But I thank you for making time to meet with us and dedicating a Tuesday evening to spend some time learning about what we do and how we do it. All right, let me just take this back to Meg. All right, can you still hear me, Tamek? Hello?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. All right, so yeah, so as Tamek said, my name is Maurice Muchene. I am Vice President of Business Development with BuildOn, and I've been with the organization. This May will be my 13th year. And I think of it truly for me as a privilege to do what I do. This is no longer work for me. It truly is something that I'm very, very passionate about, what the organization does and how it does it. And I've been fortunate to work in various parts of the organization. As Tamek said, we are a nonprofit and we do two things primarily. Our mission is to break the cycle of poverty, and we do that through education. And we currently work in two broad areas. One is here in the US where we work with high school students. And the focus of that is to empower youth in their communities to make a difference through intensive service. The second way that we're breaking the cycle of poverty is by building schools in developing countries. We are currently working in seven of the economically poorest countries in the world, and those include four in Africa: Mali, Senegal, Malawi, and Burkina Faso. And we're also building in Nicaragua, Nepal, and Haiti out here in the Western Hemisphere. The work that we do overseas, as I said, is primarily focused on building schools, and as Tomek said, as he's very well taught. He's had an opportunity to travel to two of our countries and had an opportunity to get immersed in tractor knowledge, spend time with community members, and walk side by side in solidarity with them to help build a school. I thank you for this step that you've all, decided to take. It's not an easy one. It's a big decision to make a commitment to work as a team to raise the money to build a school in one of these countries, but also beyond that, commit your time and sacrifice your time and your other things and make a trip out there to go work in solidarity with the community members. As Tamek has spoken to so well, Trek is one of our most powerful immersion programs. Anyone that has had an opportunity to go on Trek never comes back the same. It is a totally transformational experience. Having worked in BuildOn in Malawi for 5 years, and built over 150 schools with our teams there. Every time I would get out to any one of those communities, it would still feel like the first community that I went out to during the construction of a school. It never gets old. It is absolutely empowering and a totally powerful experience that really, really, helps you put things into perspective. So I want to share a little bit of a slide, a quick short slide show that I have here that kind of, talks a little bit about who we are, what we've been able to accomplish. And I know I'm talking really, really fast. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me to stop and ask your question, or ask me to slow down if you need to. Can everyone see my screen? Those of you that are on your computers, I hope you can see my screen.
I can see it, Maurice.
All right, perfect. So I am going to share this with you all. Um, so what you're seeing on your screen right now is a picture of a school, and this might either be I believe this is in Senegal, and this was actually our 1,000th school. It's a school that we built as part of our 25th anniversary. That's the school to your left, and inside to the right, you can see kids in the classroom with the smiling faces. Up to this point, we have built 1,055 schools. BuildOn's been around for 25 years. So you could see, the accomplishments kind of speak for themselves. And, as I said, we wouldn't be able to do it without people like yourselves who make a commitment to changing the world. And then the next slide that you see, that is a number of children, grandparents, and their parents that have been reached through the schools that we've built. And as Tomek alluded to, I just want to add, we're currently building in 7 countries. I mentioned 4 in Africa, Mali, Burkina Faso, Senegal, and Malawi, and also Nepal, Haiti, and Nicaragua. So 137,245 kids, parents, and grandparents have been reached through this work that we do. And that is not just a number. I mean, for me, I know that these are generally lives that have been changed, lives that have been impacted. And when you think about the trickle effect of what that means, it's absolutely powerful and empowering. 1,817,224. That's the number of volunteer work days that, or volunteer work days that our global communities have presented. When we have volunteered, when we work with communities overseas, we are not a charity, and so we do not use the approach of going to the community and building a school for these communities. We work in solidarity with them. when we make a commitment to build a school, we ask the community itself to make a commitment to work alongside us, and that looks a number of different ways. The first thing that we do ask them is that they provide the land and some locally available materials. But the second piece, which I think is even more important, is we do ask them to provide volunteer labor. The unskilled labor is all volunteer, and these are parents and grandparents from the communities that are trying to get increased access to education for their children. So they come out and they work long days and they work really, really hard alongside TREC participants, but also some of our staff to build a school. So, that number up there represents the sweat and blood of communities that they put in towards the construction of these schools. TREC itself, as I said, it's you do get to travel to some of the economically poorest countries, 7 that we're currently working with. You immerse yourself in these communities. You work and live side by side with the communities over the period that you're there. Tomek already alluded to this, but funding a school varies anywhere from 27 to about 37,000, depending on where or which one of those countries that you're building. In addition to the actual cost of building the school, we do also include a fee of $900 per person, which is the in-country expenses that we incur when we send TRECs. So you would be responsible for raising your part of the actual school construction costs, and you would also need to raise your $900, which is the fee that you would pay for the TREC, and then in addition to that, you would need to provide for your own airfare. Once you pay the $900, there's no additional costs in country for you. All of the food is taken care of, your accommodation is provided, and your transportation to and from the communities is also included in that fee. And in addition, we do also provide evacuation insurance as part of that $900. What is not included on here is sometimes, depending on the kind of insurance you have, you might have to pay or provide for your own vaccinations, and that will vary. The cost of that will vary based on what your location is and what kind of insurance that you have. In terms of where we build, I know Tamek will be talking to you all a little bit more about this in terms of selecting the country where the group will decide to fund the construction of a school, but it's going to be one of 6. We are currently not building in Mali because of the security situation there. At the moment, we are only building in Burkina Faso, Haiti, Malawi, Nepal, and Nicaragua or Senegal. I see someone there has a question. Mike, is that you?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Disregard.
Oh, disregard. Okay, no worries. No worries about that. Before I proceed to my next set of deck of presentation and talk a little bit about what the tech looks like, I want to pause and see if anyone has any questions in terms of how we work or what we do. All right. So I guess maybe we'll shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about TREC and what that means and what that looks like. TREC, as I said, it's an immersion program, and it's one of our most powerful immersion programs. Last year alone, we had over 100 TRECs for knowledge, and that included groups anywhere from a group like yours to corporate groups to groups of students that we're currently working with in the high school programs that we work with. Tamek asked, that I talked to the importance of education. As you all know, right now we've got a lot of people living below the poverty line, and especially in some of these, economically poorest countries, a majority of the people live on under $1 a day. And that's barely enough to make ends meet, provide for the families, have enough food, let alone, any of the other needs that they may have. And a lot of it is kind of perpetuated because there's no access to education. We believe, and we have seen this, that providing or giving access to an education can totally transform communities. It's empowering to the children, it's empowering to the parents and their grandparents. And, also really, really important and quite often forgotten, when you think about what you can do when you're able to read and write, some of, like stories that I've heard from community members is you hear about people talking about, how much better they feel about themselves just from me being able to read the Bible or being able to read a book, being able to become a better leader because they're now able to write their names, write, whatever it is that they might need to write. But just being able to read and write can be extremely empowering and, provide a big boost to someone's self-esteem. But it's hard to learn how to read and write or be able to access education as a 6-year-old when you have to travel sometimes anywhere from 7 to 10 kilometers. And typically what will happen in some of these communities is when you have kids that young, they're essentially supposed to start school in most of our countries at the age of 6. But because they cannot walk that far at that age, they end up getting held back by their parents and do not start school until they're a little bit older, which is anywhere from 8, sometimes 9 or 10 years old. The older you are when you start school, the higher you are, the higher the possibility or the more likely you are to drop out. Many of the girls in a lot of these communities will end up getting married off at a very, very early age for various reasons. Maybe the parents feel that if the child or the daughter is married, then they don't have to provide for them. So, when they get married at the age of 13 or 14, it also means that they get pregnant at a really, really early age, and you can imagine the risks that go along with that. So providing education allows these girls to stay, being able to stay in school allows them to get a little bit older. They don't have to get married at that early age. And being able to, with each year of education that they have, they're more likely to become a better mother and have, increase the, reduce the infant mortality rate once they become a mother of their children. And more importantly, they're able to provide and they're able to, take care of the health needs of their children as well. So you'll see on this slide right now that worldwide nearly 900 million people are illiterate. And education, as you all know, is a basic human right. Yet those who need the education, the most people that are living in these kinds of situations, some of the most difficult situations in some of the poorest countries, are probably the least likely to attend school for all of those reasons that I've talked about. So to address some of these issues, we're working to mobilize communities from these countries where we're working to build schools and increase access for their own children, which allows them to break the cycle of poverty. As I said, since 1991, we've built over 1,050 schools, and we have over 137,000 parents, children, and grandparents attending these schools every day. So as I mentioned earlier, we are engaging our partners in our mission to break the cycle, and this is done in a sustainable way in the TREC program that I've talked about. We are very, very thoughtful of where we go and how we work. We do not go into a community unless that community has indicated their willingness to work with us and they're ready to do their part of the covenant. Let's see. I'll shift gears a little bit and go to what a typical day in the village would look like. There's a number of key things that we built into the experience. There's the worksite piece that Tomek talked to. This, when you go on a trek, it is not a vacation. It is extremely challenging. You really, really push yourself, but you have an amazing group of people that are there to support you, either from the staff that we have that bring or that lead these treks to the team that you will be working with. The work itself is it's physical, it's hard, but it's very, very rewarding, and a lot of it, if not all, is done by hand. So you will come out of it with blisters, you will have lots of sore muscles and aches, but the beauty of it is at the end of it all, you do realize, or you do kind of get to see that your blood and sweat makes such a big difference in changing the lives of those that you work with. The second piece to our treks is cultural education. I know Tomek has mentioned it, that quite often when people go on trek, they go in, knowing that you're going to go help make a difference. But what people sometimes do not realize or recognize until they're in it is how you yourself do get to, experience this life-changing experience. And you go through a lot of different emotions. You go through a very, very challenging time, but you do learn a lot from it, and you come out so much better for it. So the cultural education piece is focused around helping people understand what these communities go through, what do their daily lives look like, what are the challenges that they encounter. And you will hear from them, you will learn from them, and you will understand what this whole, what everything means, the whole trek experience, what that means to the communities, but also what it means to them to have people coming in from so far away to work alongside with them in solidarity. And that does mean a lot to them. There's a lot of reflection that's built in, and we do carve out some time during the trek for journaling and self-reflection and a lot of sharing because, as I mentioned, you're going to go through a whole range of emotions, and we want to make sure that you have the support that you need, both emotionally and physically, to kind of endure this and understand what you're going through and what kind of changes your body, but also, emotionally you're going through. So the best way to do that is through reflection, and we would give you tools to share your experience with, not just while you're there, but also when you come back home, and you probably have lots of people asking what it was like. So we want to make sure that everyone's prepared, and we give them tools to share the experience with your friends and family. And then the last piece there is just, like you would be immersed in the culture, in the community there. You would spend time with your host family. When we do treks, we do not have people living in a hotel and then commuting to the village. People are immersed in the communities themselves. You're entrenched in the communities. You're hosted by the families that you would be working alongside. You spend nights in their homes, whether it's in their living rooms or if they give up a bedroom for you. In some of the countries where we work, we do have people having meals with the communities. In some, we do have meals as a group. So it depends really on what part of the world you go to. But there's all kinds of challenges that go along with this, as Tomek might attest to, because of language. But one way or the other, people figure out how to get around this. So I want to stop there. I know I've talked a lot. I know I've shared a lot, and I apologize if all of this is overwhelming. I guarantee you and assure you that as we go along through this journey, we will break all of this down in much simpler, bite-sized kind of serving, so that it makes sense to everyone. But as Tomek said, I'm also available and will be really accessible to you all, whether it's by email, whether it's by phone, to answer any questions that you might have. There will be, of course, a number of things that we need to talk about in terms of the fundraising piece. And I don't know how you want to do that, Tomek, but just a couple things that I want to mention. Before we can get on the schedule, the build schedule, we would need to have raised at least 10,000 and deposited that with BuildOn. And at that point, as a group, we would have a slot on the calendar, whether we want to do that this year, if we want to do it next year. As soon as we raise 10,000, we have that submitted to BuildOn, it kind of gets us on that schedule, on the schedule for the treks. And then from there, we've got a few months to raise the balance and be able to kind of, pay the difference, as well as raising whatever we need to raise as far as the in-country costs. Along the journey, we will have a trek coordinator that will be assigned to the group, and their primary function is to walk the group through what the needs are or what preparations we would need to make. So they would go through everything, such as like what you need to do in terms of packing. They'll go much more in-depth in terms of what the schedule would look like, what the travel would look like, and they would be available to the group in terms of guiding people with the flight reservations, and they would also be responsible for making sure that the arrangements on the ground take place. Once the community is identified, we would get a community profile, and if people want to know where they're going, that can be made available to the team as well. So you kind of know what village you'd be going to, what that looks like, and what are some of the issues that the community members there face. Yeah, I think those are the key things that I wanted to share with you all. I'm going to stop there and see if you have any questions. Tomek, I don't know if you want to add anything onto that.
Yeah, very briefly, Maurice, and thank you for, going through in detail about what it's like to, BuildOn is, what you guys already accomplished in your 25 years of existence, and some of what people can expect when it comes to building a school and then taking it on. I know that a lot of people, and I'm sure I was one of them when I first heard it, it's like $10,000 just to get a deposit for a school, and like, 27,000 to $37,000 is a lot of money. But what we're doing tonight is like what I'm looking for is to create a team. That's my goal. I've been a part of other teams, and those teams are off creating more teams, and spreading this experience with others. So instead of going off of this year and spending it with the same group of people I've already done this with, I'm looking to open up and broaden the horizons to other people who I know are very interested as well. And thank you for everyone who's joined the call. And I want to assure you that even though, like Maurice said, $10,000 will be needed to like secure a date and a location where we would go and build a school, it is a lot easier than you think. We are among, especially here in LA, in the greater LA area, we are among a very special group of talented people, whether they are artists, whether they are singers, dancers, musicians, graphic designers. People have so many great, unique talents. And even if you're not a part of like the artistic and creative community, there are so many things that can be done, because what it really is the power of a team. When people come together for a singular purpose, nothing can stop them. I'm very clear about that. And I know that we could raise $10,000 in the snap of a day by putting together an event, whether something we do all collectively. I know a lot of people who are interested in this will not necessarily be on this call and might be coming from other parts of the country. But regardless, I know it can be made possible through different efforts. I've done in-person events. I've done video streaming events. These things are all possible and available to us, and I know that whoever's committed to making this work, I know that that group of people will definitely get this raised with no problem whatsoever. But this is also a great time to ask questions, whether it's regarding fundraising efforts, whether it's regarding to the experience itself, or the logistics. Again, Maurice and I are here to answer questions, to spend the remainder of what we scheduled here in terms of the hour, to answer any questions, comments, concerns. And again, whether they're now or in the future, we're also both available to speak to that. So I'd love to open up to anybody who has questions, comments, concerns. We're here for you.
Hi, Tomek. It's Shalina. I have 2 questions.
Great. Hi.
Okay. Hi. So thanks so much for all that great information. And my 2 basic questions right now are, 1, what is the time commitment in terms of like how long are you actually on site in the villages? And 2, if you're not like a very physically strong person, like you're not handicapped, but you're not super strong, you can't be lifting concrete, is there still a role for you?
Mm-hmm.
Tomek, do you want me to take this, or you want to take this?
I mean, I can give my experience, and Maurice, why don't you jump in after that? I will tell you my experience. Yes, Shalene, I'm a very physically, geared human being. I like to get my hands dirty. I want to just let you know that the people, especially like on the Nepal video, as an example, we had a wide range of people. I think we had a total of 12 or 13 people on that trek, and they ranged in ages from like 22 to our oldest person was honestly 76. The 2 married couples were in their 70s. And whether, I'm digging it with a shovel, and that's what I love to do. We had people bending rebarb with tools. We had people, lifting a rock at a time, and even we had people making sure that people stay hydrated. Like there was such a range of like physical ability and physical, it's really just about the willingness, right? It's about the willingness to contribute to the effort. Not everyone's going to be able to do the same thing, and that's totally cool. And just to call myself out, I've dug ditches with people from these countries, and let me tell you, I am completely out of shape compared to people who walk around with no shoes on and can pick at the dirt for 10 hours without stopping, or water, and I have to stop every 15 minutes, or if even that much. So let me assure you, from my perspective, and Maurice, please jump in, I see everyone having an impossible role, and that it's just a matter of finding a place that feels right for you, given what you feel like you're capable of.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, Tomek, I couldn't put it any better. Shalina, look at this as a challenge by choice. And, people have different abilities and different strengths and different passions for that matter. And as Tomek said, there's all kinds of work that's available, and people will do all kinds of different things. So you find the right spot for you, and you push yourself, because that's what Trek truly is all about, is challenging yourself physically and mentally, and just being present. So there will be a spot for everyone and people of all strengths and abilities. Yes.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
And then my second question is, how long are you on site?
Oh
Yes.
yeah, I didn't speak to that. I mean, Maurice might have more specifics. I've gone on varying degrees because we had some large groups, and the first time we went on trek, we had a film crew with us. So if I recall properly, we're in the country, like we've been there between 7 and 9 days, but we were in village, so there's some prep time to kind of ease our way into the culture and then ease our way out of it and getting back acclimated to the developed world versus the developing world. And we've spent as much as, this last time in Nepal, we were in the village itself, I believe 5 or 6 days. But it's been shorter, I think 4 days for some teams, and that varies. But Maurice, please, if you have more specific information, please share.
Yeah, no, thanks, Tomek. You're absolutely right. So the treks do vary when we have the high school students going on treks, which is, I think, the trek that you went on, Tomek, might have been a hybrid between a donor and a high school trek. Those ones tend to be a little bit longer, but with the donor treks, the ambassador treks, as we call them, it's 7 days. It's a 7-day commitment, which includes travel on both ends. So, it would kind of be one day of travel to the community, into the country, and one day out, which leaves you with 5 days total. And one of those days you spend getting to the community and then coming back. So you're actually in the village, including the day of the groundbreak and all of that, anywhere from 4 to 5 days, depending on where you're going or what part of the world that you go to. But total, you'll be looking at a commitment of about 7 days.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you guys so much for those answers.
You're welcome. Good questions, Shalina. Thank you for asking.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Hi, Kamek. Are you able to hear me?
I am. Is this Chelsea?
This is.
Awesome.
So I am wondering how education is implemented after the build is done, and if it's maintained through BuildOn, or how they see their roles after building the the physical building.
Yeah, fantastic question, and I know Maurice is going to need to jump in on some of the micro specifics that I have, but here's how it works. As Maurice already alluded to, is that this is a completely movement of solidarity, meaning that it's two communities, it's our community and the host communities coming together to empower them to have a building and have the education that they need. And we're not just doing it in terms of charity and leaving there. We're doing it side by side, and we have their full endorsement on that. So my understanding, and again, Maurice, please correct me, is that when we've agreed to raise the funds and build a school someplace, that BuildOn already has created the agreements with the local community, the local Ministry of Education, to ensure that teachers are put into that school and that they have an ability to have the school up and running on their own. Within a 2 to 3 month period, once we break ground, it should be completed. And then once the school is completed, that they should be able to self-sustain it for at least 18 months on their own. And the last thing I will say, and again, Maurice, please correct me, is that my understanding is that once the school is up, and again, they've kind of funneled their resources in besides the building, which is what we're providing, that everything tends to just self-sustain on its own, because now that people have what they need, it's just a matter of sending the kids to school. I've gone back and visited schools that have been completed, and that's something we've done on both of my treks, and it's incredible. People they love the school, and they would die rather than to give up the opportunity to have it and send their kids there. But Maurice, please fill in any missing gaps there.
Yeah, no, you've kind of covered it pretty well. The only thing that I'll add is sometimes what we look for when we're doing site selection is communities where they might already have the institution of school, and all they're lacking is the infrastructure. So the school is already in place, or rather there's already kids attending classes in that location where we would be building. They might not have the classrooms, and you'll see from the community profiles that sometimes we get the kind of structures that they attend classes in really are very, very rudimentary, sometimes completely non-existent. And the kids are totally exposed to the elements. So that would be one thing. Sometimes we do set up completely brand new schools where there was nothing in existence. Before we do build in a community like that, we do have an agreement with the local Ministry of Education that they will not only send the teachers and provide the learning resources, but that they will also recognize that school once it is done. And as Tomek mentioned, once the school is done, we do hand it over, because we're working with the communities. It's not our school, it is their school. And we're merely just kind of providing them the resources that they need to build the school. But once the school is complete, we will hand it over to the community and to the Ministry of Education. In pretty much all of our countries, they have what are called school management committees, and these are committees that are formed of local people, parents, teachers, kind of like a PTA, if you may, the Parents Teachers Association, and they're responsible for the day-to-day running of the school. They do sometimes write small grants from the ministry to do repairs that they might need to, or to purchase learning resources that they might need to, and that varies. But essentially, the school management committee oversees the running of the school once it is complete and once we've handed it to the villagers and the Ministry of Education.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? These have been great.
Hello? Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, who's there?
Oh, didn't know if my mic was working. Okay.
Your mic's on.
Oh, nice. So will there be Haagen-Dazs on the airplane?
This has got to be Rob Kirkland. Oh my gosh. For those who don't know Mr. Kirkland, he joined me in Nepal. We were on the same flight together. He went to build in another location, and we shared a nap and a Haagen-Dazs together. So we go back.
Several Haagen-Dazs, several. Yes.
Oh my goodness, buddy, good to hear from you. Are you interested in doing another school this year?
I'm pondering it. Yeah, man, it's quite an experience, for sure. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. You know that.
Yeah, well, if you can, since you've done one as well, and you're joining us a little late, I shared a little bit of my experience, but maybe in like a minute or less, like we've got some people still on the line. Can you share your experience of building a school back in, what was it, late September, early October in Nepal, over there on the western side near India?
Yeah, you want the truth, or you want the highlights? No.
Yeah, both.
No, it was no. So honestly, though, it's a pretty powerful experience, and people tell you that before you go, and then you wonder how much of that is like hyperbole and whatnot, but no, it is, and you're instantly out of any type of comfort zone that you think you're in. But it's not as bad as. It's a great experience. It's an intense experience, and I was checking in earlier when Tomek was talking about as far as your experience level or how strenuous it is. We have people of all different abilities doing all different things, but it's definitely going to get you out of your comfort zone in a good way, and whether that's the work or the culture, but at the end of the day, it's really inspiring, and it's something that I've considered doing again. It's something that when you do, speaking for myself and my other teammates and Tomek and his team too, that is something that you don't. It's something you don't forget, and something that you don't regret. So I can't really say enough about it. It's a good time.
Amazing, and I couldn't agree with you more, buddy. You're right. It's a definite. I love that you put it. It's stepping out of your comfort zone, because you're going to be put in situations whether you can't communicate with somebody, or you're physically exhausted, or you're not used to having the greatest plumbing or no plumbing at all to be able to take care of your basic human needs. And let me tell you,
showering with a bucket in the jungle.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you're showering with a bucket in the jungle, and let me tell you, it's the cleanest you've ever felt in your life, because
it's great. Yeah.
You've never had that before. It's quite an experience. It's quite an experience, and I mean that in the most positive sense. It's like you come back to a toilet and you think, "Wow, I am a king." And I'm being spoiling myself right now. And I mean that with like absolute love in my heart. It's quite moving and transformative.
Yeah. And the food's good too. The food's good.
Well, aside from
I'm,
the Haagen-Dazs.
aside from the Haagen-Dazs, but that was one of the things that surprised me the most was I mean, everyone was really hot. The hospitality was fantastic. It was heart moving. How people give up their home and how appreciative that that they are, and how moved they are. It moved me a lot, and yeah, the food was good. Like they really put their hearts into, like, every day, every night you come home, and they have this amazing food. A lot of curry, but it's amazing. You like curry if you're in Nepal, food and stuff ready, and they put their hearts into everything, and they give you everything that they have as far as time and efforts and resources, and I mean, that is just one of the many moving things about the experience, and that sense of connection and community that you are exposed to.
Yeah, couldn't say it better myself, buddy. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And whether it's from you, Rob, or anybody else, any other questions after Rob has shared so kindly?
I have another quick
Yeah,
one.
Tony,
This is Kelsey again.
Mike.
I'm gonna let Mike go in on this one. He hasn't had one yet.
Don't worry.
Go for it.
That's fine.
No problem. Sorry about that.
Oh, somebody goes.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Mike, when did you start getting into this charity work, and what motivated you to get into it? What get you started?
Truthfully, I've done a lot of different things, and personally, this is going to sound so cliche, but this is the God's honest truth, is that in my day-to-day life, I know I have a lot of blessings and a lot of things to be grateful for, and quite honestly, I forget about it all the time. I take for granted that I have a great house to live in and a roof over my head, food in the in the refrigerator at all times, like the conveniences, the ease, and just like the simple things like my health and the opportunities. I mean, the life that I think most of us lead is one of true privilege and true joy, and I think if I'm going to be given such an opportunity, I have to give back. And reality is that I forget about that. Like, I get caught up in the comparison of I'm not successful enough, or I'm not making enough money, or I'm thinking about my little BS, minutia problems sometimes, and I think we all do. And quite honestly, there's nothing that gets me more out of my head than being of service to others. And there's nothing that is as transformative for me and to make me free of like the fetters of my own ego than to be completely immersed in something else. I fed the homeless a lot years ago by working at the Union Rescue Mission every morning, not every morning, but a couple times a week. And I've done work with kids. I've done work in other forms of education. And I honestly always do it because I feel like as much as people think I'm giving to them, I'm really getting something more in return than I could have ever bargained for. I am completely free of myself. I am never as happy as I am when I'm with a bunch of people that really are grateful for the time or the resources I'm providing, and I lose all track of time. And as someone that kind of always feels like I know what time it is, it feels amazing and liberating to just be like totally present with somebody else, and to be able to put a smile on someone's face and know that you don't need anything back because you've changed their life. And truthfully, like, not to be too spiritual or out there about it, but it's like I really do believe that we're put here on this planet for a purpose. We're here to serve one another and serve our fellow man. And I know this is a crazy, I'm not going to speak to anything specific, but crazy, interesting political time with a lot of different people out in the world. And regardless of what one's opinions, viewpoints, or stance are, I'm of the opinion that I live in the global community, that we are all one, and I see us all as one family underneath the stars. And my fellow man is super important to me, and I don't care if they're somebody that are on the streets of Los Angeles or in a village in Malawi. I don't care if they're living in a high-rise in New York or if they're living in the slums of Nepal. Bangkok or someplace else in the world. I've been very fortunate that I have what I have, and I really can tell you that I do think I take it too much for granted at times. I do get caught up in my own, BS. And there's nothing that makes me feel like I'm a human being and makes me feel alive than to connect with another human being in a totally selfless act. And ultimately, I think that's what we're here for. We're here to serve other people. We might be doing it through our work, through our service, through our spirituality, through whatever means we can, but ultimately, even every business is there to serve someone else, and I look at this as another opportunity to be of service, and I love it, and I'm wholeheartedly about sharing that experience with others.
Very cool. Thank you.
Of course.
Fantastic. Well said.
I think Chelsea had also another question.
Hi. That was a way better question than mine. But my question was, on average, how much are airfares?
Maurice could
Have
probably
a general idea.
Totally. I mean, everything is different. What Rob's on the line, and he knows, like I do, that Nepal's a little different. It's really halfway around the world. We were on a plane for more than a day. And the only difference with Nepal, too, is that, as Maurice had already pointed out, that the in-country fee of $900 covers everything you need. But Nepal is so far away that once you get to Nepal and you get to Kathmandu, which is the capital, you still need a commuter flight to the remote region where most of the schools are being built. So my understanding is that there's an additional $450 that are there for that. So in total, because I also took a couple of extra days for myself to get to Nepal, I think my plane ticket was approximately, I don't even know if it was over 1,000, but if it was very little, plus that other $450. But if we were going to a place like Haiti, obviously a lot closer, you're going to have cheaper airfare. So from my when I went to Malawi, I think I got away with it also for, about $1,000 to $1,200, and that was literally within weeks of like being confirmed on that because I waited. But the further in advance we commit to it and we set it down, I'm sure it's going to always be cheaper. But in a general sense, and maybe again Maurice has a better idea of it, but from my experience, I think about $1,000 is pretty safe to say that you're going to spend on average for a flight. It might be a little less, might be a little more. Then you've got your in-country fee, so you're already looking at approximately $1,900. And then I'm not going to lie, you're going to, for most of the countries you're going to potentially be looking at, you probably need vaccines. So there's going to be a little bit of that as well, and that varies depending on where you go. And I can give you some great resources. And then because we're essentially roughing it, it's going to be like a backpacking, camping trip. So everything has to pretty much fit into one pack. So whether you're borrowing gear from others, you might want to also consider purchasing, whether it's the shoes or the right kind of camping trekking gear. Those are all specific. So it's not the cheapest, but like I don't want to, sugarcoat it and say like it's just the airfare and everything's taken care of. You got to make sure you're kind of dressed and prepared for doing work, not being able to have like, a closet and a room and a shower. Like you're going to be, you're going to be roughing it a little bit, even if you're living in host family's home. Like I've slept in my host family's home on the ground, and they gave me their only room in their house, but I slept on a mat, like an air mattress one time underneath a mosquito net. And then another time I was very fortunate that I slept on an actual, Nepalese bed. My host family slept on the floor next to me, and they gave up their own beds for me and my roommate to share under also a mosquito net. So just want to keep it out there. Does that answer the question? Yellow?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yes, that does.
Yeah, so realistically, I mean, you're probably looking anywhere from, if you were able to get all the resources together, at least approximately $2,000 to upwards of $3,000, depending on where you're going, how much you need to buy on your own versus how much you can get from others. And for me, just so I'm specific, like I've borrowed a Trek backpack from a buddy of mine, and then I've borrowed like, I had to buy my own shoes, but like, a jacket, puffy jacket I borrowed from somebody one time, or a hat I borrowed from here, and then like, like it's like someone's bringing the mosquito, stuff, but bringing your own. And when you get closer to the trek, there's a big checklist that we all go through, and other calls that we would have to make sure that everyone's got the specifics. But that's a safe assumption. And one last thing, since we're talking about like being on track and like the cost, I have raised money in the past to help support this endeavor. So like I've specifically said, hey, I'm not only raising money for the school, but I'm raising money so I can go and build the school. And that from my experience, is the ethical way of doing it, so people are aware of where their money is going, or whether they're joint efforts or you've created two different kind of funds for yourself. But so that's something you can either pay out of your pocket, which I know people have, or you can figure out a way to fundraise it. So another awesome way to do it. Like it's totally doable.
So Mac, it's Shalina again. I have one last question, if that's okay.
Of course.
Okay. And I apologize if this might come off as offensive, but in terms of safety, like for female, for example, if you're going to a village, if you're staying in someone's house, what is kind of the vetting that happens to assure the safety of the people that are traveling, especially women?
That's a great question. I have my answer, but I think Maurice, if you could speak to that, I think that would be you've got all those details in terms of emergency evacuation, the proper, pairing of host families with those, and safety and precautions. So please, Maurice, if you could speak to that question.
Totally, yeah, I'm happy to. So first of all, the trek coordinators that the team leaders that go with these treks are what are called wilderness fast responder. They're trained, and it's a pretty intensive training where they taught how to be a wilderness fast responder. They will be able to provide first aid, treat kind of triage any kind of injury for the most part. But also we do have the evacuation insurance, which is with a company that we have total faith in. We've not had to use it very often, but the 1 or 2 times that we've had to use it, they've been absolutely outstanding, totally reliable, and have been, just like rock stars in terms of how they've handled our emergencies. As far as the safety, 2 things that I want to mention. One is that we never go anywhere or into any country where there is conflict. We just don't. And that's why we're not currently building in Mali, because we do not feel confident enough in terms of the security there. We know it's not the safest place right now for foreigners. But the second thing is because of the partnership that we have with the communities, because of what these treks mean, or what this gift of a school means to the community, and the solidarity that we've built, they do have a sense of obligation and a sense of responsibility for the community members. The safest place, I would say, whenever we have teams going on a trek is actually in the villages. That's where there's the least likelihood of anything bad happening, which is kind of ironic because people will think that when you're traveling to a poor country, that probably being far away from the city might be where you're most vulnerable. But I think that's where we are most safe, just because of what this partnership means to those community members. So from the training that our staff have, to the preparation that they've done, and to also the experience that we have. We've run a lot of treks. Last year we ran over 100 treks. The year before that we ran close to about 90 or something like that treks. So we've got staff that are really, really experienced. As an organization, we have refined this, and we are one of the only organizations that run these kind of service learning trips in the way that we do, and we are successful in it because of the number of times that we've done it, because of the amount of preparation that we do. So as far as assuring your safety, we feel really, really confident in what we put in place, the methodology that we have, the precautionary measures that we take, and of all the preparation that we do to make sure every team is safe.
Okay. Thank you so much for elaborating on that. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. So one thing just I want to add maybe that I know Tomek alluded to also is when we're assigning people, families to stay with, we always make sure people are paired up. And that's not to say that there's any kind of issue or concern about being in the home alone, but just for that additional reassurance, we always make sure that we pair people up. And sometimes we'll even have people go in groups of 3, but for the most part, because of the size of the homes and the communities where we're being hosted, people will usually be assigned host families, and they'll go in pairs. So you've kind of got each other as well in that kind of way.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, these are all amazing, really, really good questions. I really appreciate. So keep them coming, please.
Yeah, does anyone else have anything else? I also want to note it's 7:07, or where if you're on the East Coast, I don't think anyone's on the East Coast right now. So I definitely want to respect everyone's time. But I'm happy to stay on the line. I'm sure Maurice is as well to answer any last minute questions. I guess the last thing I think is important to share is that, again, I'm looking to put together another team. So whether you need to want to let me know now or in the future, in the near future, and whether it's with yourself, you and a spouse, or you and other friends to join the team, the more the merrier, because I also find that, like, it's you got to kind of start someplace, and there's usually a trickle down effect at times. So, and the more people that there are, the easier this is to raise money. Obviously, if you have 15 people, it's a lot easier to raise that money than, like, it ends up being about $2,000 a person approximately than it takes when you've got 6 people. The burden of raising the funds to build a school and or to go on Trek becomes that much easier, and this becomes that much quicker to be done. So unless there's any other questions, which we'll happily ask for at this point, I want to let everyone know, like, please let me know if you are interested or if you'd like to share this with others. I'm going to, Maurice is recording this call graciously, and we're going to be able to share it with others. So if you'd like to share this call with somebody else or revisit if you have any questions or thoughts. And again, I'm always available to answer any specifics as well regarding my experiences and just where it's all about. And I want to thank everybody who took the time to just make it out on a Tuesday night to learn more about an opportunity that I think really will change everyone's lives for the better if they choose to take it.
Thanks, Tomek.
Thanks, Tomek.
Of
Maurice
course.
and Rob.
Very cool. Thank you.
Amazing. Wow.
Guys, any other last questions while we still have everyone on the phone? Okay, well, with that, thank you. Thanks again. I really want to thank Maurice, especially for putting this together, using his resources, and sharing his night. He could be doing anything, along with you guys who have called in. Very, very big thank you to everyone, but especially Maurice. I really do appreciate you, brother. And yeah, please let me know if you'd like to learn more and if you'd like to be committed and involved in the process, because I am committed to making at least one more school this year, if not 2, now that we're early enough in the season.
Well, thank you so much, Tomek, and thank you very much for letting me be a part of this. And folks, I appreciate your time. And as Tomek mentioned, we're here, we're accessible. I will make sure I send out the link to this recording, Tomek. And now if you need to share it with anyone, you can just send them the link.
Perfect. I really appreciate you, Maurice.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Of course.
In Malawi, by the way, we say Zuko Kwambiri. You remember that, Tomek, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I hope to all hear from you soon, especially if you decide to join up with me. And thanks again for the time, and have a great night.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tomek. Thank you.
Of course. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.